KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
What a game! What a game!
Get off my lawn.
Jim Schutze here with Get Off My Lawn. I want to remind you before I get into the show, which is going to be an interesting one, that this is kind of the end of our pledge drive. We're getting toward the top of the mountain, but we need your help to make it there. And I hope some of you can pledge during this hour, because that helps keep yours truly on the air. It's 972-647-1893, 972-647-1893. Jim Schutze with
Get Off My Lawn,
which is the KNON community version of a thing I do for the Dallas Observer. On the web page, you can Google Get Off My Lawn and find us there. We have a really interesting program today. I have a distinguished guest with me, Robert Gorden, an author and expert on the Kennedy assassination. I'm going to let him give you his full credentials, but Mr. Gorden is one of the premier authorities on the assassination. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He was the forensic photographic consultant to the House Committee on Assassinations. We sometimes forget, by the way, that committee, which rendered its report in 1979, found that there were probably multiple gunmen in the assassination. There's a sort of a sense out there that the verdict is in and it was all Lee Harvey Oswald, and only crazy people think that there was anybody else involved. After a lengthy investigation, the House Committee, which was able to use its power of subpoena and dig into a lot of places that regular people can't go, found that was almost certainly not the case. The House Committee found evidence, and I'll let Mr. Gorden explain more about this, that there were more than one gunman. Oswald was not mentioned in their finding. Robert is with me here today for a couple of specific reasons. He has been the target of a sustained campaign of official oppression by the city of Dallas over the years. His issue with the city is now in federal court as a constitutional rights case. I don't know. I'll let him explain if there's still a city issue pending. This all becomes important as we approach the 50th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination next November 22. The city has got a huge effort going to suppress any expression of skepticism about the assassination. The city's official version on the assassination has always been projected by the 6th floor museum, which has been kind of the city's official propaganda arm on this, to try to render any of the experts who have expressed skepticism about the one gunman Oswald theory, to try to render them publicly as fools and nutcases. Robert's one of the best examples you can meet of many that will to persuade you that that's not just an unfair characterization, but an extreme characterization. And it's going to be expressed here extremely on the 50th anniversary in the efforts to shut down freedom of expression during that event. Before I bring Robert on, let me remind you one more time, it's really important that we get your help. This is Pledge Drive at KNON. The phone number is 972-647-1893. That's the number to pledge. It's also the number to call if you want to talk to me or Mr. Gorden, 972-647-1893. And before we get into the more immediate stuff of Robert, of your situation with the city and the 50th, I'm sure I shortchanged you on your credentials. Can I ask you to be a little bit immodest and give us a little bit fuller history of your work on the assassination?
Well, Jim, I started working on the Kennedy assassination less than a week after the assassination itself happened. The president was shot on my 18th birthday, November 22nd, 1963. And I started studying it. I had immediate interest in it. And back in 1975, I finally was able to go public with my work on the case. I appeared on a TV show called Good Night America on ABC TV. And Geraldo Rivera was the host. And I showed the films of the assassination to the public for the first time ever. The Zapruder film, the Nix film.
The public had not seen these films before.
That's correct. In the case of the Zapruder film, Life magazine had bought it for $250,000 and suppressed it. They didn't release it. They showed individual frames in Life magazine very carefully, avoiding the fact that the president was thrown violently to the left when he was shot from the front. Once again, this is one of the situations where the press had cooperated tremendously with the government in their official fiction on the case. In any case, through the years, I had written some magazine articles.
Can I interject one thing here?
Sure.
Because now press criticism has taken on different parameters and different dynamic. But we need to remember, this was a time when, for example, the President Kennedy's flamboyant sexual promiscuity was simply blacked out of coverage by the consent of and the cooperation of the press. So the press at that time, by habit, typically helped the establishment, the power elite, the White House, put out the story that it wanted out as an official version. So the fact that the Life magazine and these entities were suppressing the Zapruder film was not at all out of sync with the way the press behaved generally at that time. Would you say that was? Yes,
you're absolutely right. One of the major coups at revealing this sort of thing was Watergate. If it hadn't been for Watergate, a lot of people still wouldn't believe that there was a conspiracy. Mm-hmm. That just opened a lot of people's eyes to understand that, in fact, government conspiracies can and do exist.
With the help of the media.
Indeed.
Right.
Well, I'll give you another example. I wrote a book called High Treason back in 1988. The book hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. They buried it at #2, but they had at least admitted #2. But to this day, they still haven't reviewed the book. That's that kind of a situation, yeah.
Right.
And then I wrote another book called The Killing of a President, which also became regionally #1. Mm-hmm. They never even mentioned it. It never even made the list. Mm-hmm. So that goes on and on. The Warren Commission report, there was a special edition published in paperback at a financial loss to get the word out by the New York Times, mm-hmm. which was very, very strange. You know, why does it matter to them to get this,
right.
as you said, work of propaganda out?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what it was. But getting back to the credentials,
right.
I've testified before every investigation since the Warren Commission. on the assassination. I worked for the House Assassinations Committee for almost 3 years. They only existed officially for 2 years, but for 6 months before and 6 months after, I still worked with them. Their report was that to a 95% certainty or greater, there was, in fact, a conspiracy to kill President Kennedy. There has been a re-examination of that some years ago, and the degree went up from 95% or greater to 98% or greater. Between 98 and 100%, I mean, what are we really talking about? 2%. It's definite. There was more than one shooter.
Right.
I personally have interviewed almost 30 of the Dallas doctors, and every one of them, without exception, said that the shot came from the front.
Let me skip, and I've got to pause for a second and do my chore here. I want to remind people that this is Knon Community Radio. We're in our pledge drive. There's a reason why you can hear somebody like Robert Gorden here. You're not going to hear him anywhere else in Dallas. You'll read about him in the Observer. We're the other window. But this is a place where discussion of some issues, this one in particular, is just very, very tightly controlled. And if you help us stay on the air by pledging money today, you help keep this window open on stories that otherwise will not be told in Dallas. Give us a call at 972-647-1893. Sorry to exploit you, Robert, here this way, but we're trying to keep the doors open.
Exploit away.
972-647-1893. Please call and give us a pledge. Can I, you've given us a peek at your credentials. They go on and on. He was a consultant to the Oliver Stone movie and has continued to be an important authority in this area. How would you characterize the version that comes out of the 6th floor museum?
Well, I've got a nice little 8-letter word which I can't use on radio, but let's just say a fairy tale. It's a joke. They're lying. They know they're lying. Virtually everybody there knows that it was a conspiracy, but if they want to keep their jobs, they better not say it. That's been the case, unfortunately. I was one of the people who helped them when they first opened up. They BS'd me. They BS'd everybody. Told us that they were going to present all sides of the issue fairly and evenly.
Right.
They never have. Right. If you want any proof of that, just go to their bookstore. Their bookstore has nothing admitting even the possibility of a conspiracy. Yeah.
What is the lady's name? Who's the director of the English?
Oh, Lordy.
We shouldn't start sentences this...
Longford. I can't think of her first name right now.
Longford's
her last name.
I keep thinking Camilla, but that's not it. That's another English lady.
Yeah, no, it's not.
But I met her by chance when she first came to town. And she said... lots of promises about how the museum was going to be open and tell it like it is. But then she said in this sort of lowered voice with a kind of alarm, there are a lot of very powerful people in Dallas who still don't want the story told. Now, she's gone completely dark side now, right? I mean, she's completely in the camp of the oppression.
Nicola is her
Nicola,
first.
that's right.
Longford.
Nicola, thank you.
When she first came to town, I met with her. We were introduced to each other, and I explained how upset so many of us were the fact that the 6th floor museum, rather than be history, was actually a cover-up.
Right.
And she said things will change.
Right.
Well,
and I think she meant it. I think she meant it.
I think she did then. She knows better now.
Yeah. Let me ask you to describe, while we're still in this first segment of the show, the city's campaign of police oppression against you. How many times have you dealt with them?
I have been ticketed 80 times. I've been to court 81. Every single one was thrown out by the judges. I've been in front of every single municipal court judge in the city from 12, 13, 14 years ago. all the way through now. What is really shocking and absolutely unforgivable is the two judges that were still sitting on the bench who had supported me were fired.
Mm-hmm. Those are judges.
Judge Carrie Chavez, a very brave and honest and honorable woman who did her job and did it right. She saw that there was no case against me, and she threw it out of court. And they threw her out off the bench.
They're ticketing you. They've also jailed you.
Yes, twice.
And the charge is because you're selling books or videos, you're actually out there lecturing in Dealey Plaza on your point of view, and as part of your lectures, it is possible for people to buy your books and buy your tapes.
Yes. What I was arrested for was, in fact, selling a single magazine, and there's no law against it. The city ordinances allow it,
which is why the judges have consistently told the city that that you've broken no law.
That's correct.
In fact, when the city recently went through this whole municipal court so-called reform, where they in fact got these judges on a much shorter leash because they pay their salaries, that really had some to do with your case, did it not?
It had a great deal to do with my case. Where, as I see it, and I do believe in conspiracies, obviously, where I see it is this. Judge Chavez found for me. That was embarrassing to the city. They asked her to please reconsider, and she did, and she still found for me.
Right.
So they fired her, sending a message to every judge in the city that if they don't find against me, they're going to lose their jobs.
Right.
And it's not just me. I'm sure there's a lot of other cases too, but for me, that's one that really sticks out now. And since there's a federal court case based on this particular issue, I think they're getting very worried about it.
So the picture is we have Robert Gorden on the weekends and some other times out in the middle of Dealey Plaza. Every time I've seen you, you've had a substantial crowd of very attentive people. Some of them are tourists, some of them may be local, listening to what you have to say, looking at your evidence, looking at your displays. Some few of them may buy books or magazines. Most of them are listening. So we've got you out there in Dealey Plaza, and then right up above you in the school book depository building, we've got the 6th floor museum people looking down. What has their role been in the arrests?
They called the police in the first place. They created the issues for the arrest. Their chief of security admitted it openly and bragging about it. No, I'm the one who called the police.
And was there during one of the arrests?
Oh, yeah. Actually, there during at least two of them. Two of the ticketing, but he was there during the last arrest.
So the question would be, in my mind, before we go to this break, here's a museum that is, you think of museums as sort of scholarly places and academic places and places for the exploration of ideas. Here they are looking down from the sniper's nest at you, calling the cops to shut you down. Why would they do that?
They have a point of view that they need to promote, and that is that Lee Harvey Oswald, alone and unassisted, created the assassination. He thought of everything, did everything perfectly except plan his getaway.
So this museum, which has very important financial backing from old money in Dallas, takes it upon itself to call the cops to make you stop talking down there in Dealey Plaza. Is that about it?
That's it. And they've done it more than once. They've done it quite a few times.
Okay, we're going to come back after the break to talk about this more. It's Jim Schutze with Get Off My Lawn with guest Robert Gorden.
KNON depends on listener support to stay on the air, and now is the time for you to help keep this show on the air. If you like what you're hearing and want to show your appreciation for great community radio, pick up the phone and call to make a pledge. Call 972-647-1893 or go online to knon.org. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Without the support of our listeners, there won't be any community radio on the air in North Texas. So take a few minutes to make a pledge. Call 972-647-1893 or go online to knon.org.
This is Sunny Boy Mark, and I'd like to take a minute here to tell you about over 60 minutes of great blues listening available now on KNON's Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 Blues CD. This is some great stuff, folks. 15 tracks from the Two Tones, Blues Boy Bo, Buddy Whittington, Andrea Dawson, Kirkland James, Sonny Colley, Johnny Red and the Roosters, the Chris Watson Band, the Rough Cut Blues Band, Jeff Stone with Charlie Love, David Millsap, Sir Loin and the Ass Kicking Machine, Michael J. and the Paul Bird Band, and JJ and the Detonators. The 1,000 copies we made are selling fast, and we won't reissue it. Get yours now at Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Record Town in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records and Rewind Music. The CD is available as a download at cdbaby.com. All proceeds benefit KNON, sponsored by Forever Young Records. Vinyl copies available at Forever Young Records only. For more info on Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, visit knon.org. Your ears been bending for some blues? Well, feed them the real thing with Texas Blues Radio Volume 5.
Hey, babes, take one.
Jim Schutze back with Get Off My Lawn. Guest Robert Gorden. We're talking about the Kennedy assassination and the upcoming 50th anniversary observation. I thought it was interesting when the city announced, they had a big deal at the old red courthouse I went to, and the mayor was running it, and they announced this 50th thing, whatever it is, coming up. And there were instructions to us mediatoids sitting there that it was not to be called the 50th anniversary, that it was not to be called the 50th anything having to do with JFK, that we were to call it the 50th. Only just the 50th. And I wanted to raise my hand and say, Mayor, there's a problem in our business. If we say the 50th, everybody's going to say, 50th what? You can't just leave it out. Let me remind listeners, this is KNON Community Radio. We're in our pledge drive. We can sure use some help at 972-647-1893. KNON provides a unique window on stories just like this one, but we need help staying here, keeping the plywood out of the windows. 972-647-1893. I want to thank Eric Toston of Hot Guava of Dallas for their $25 pledge to the show. That was thank you, Eric. That's very much appreciated and very helpful. And I hope we'll get some more of those. 972-647-1893. So, back to Robert Gorden, who's a internationally recognized authority on the assassination. We're lucky to have him. Who else is talking to you today? Just on a typical day, who else are you being interviewed by?
Tom Brokaw.
And can you say what that's about? Or?
I'm really not supposed to say.
Okay, all right, I understand. I'm sure. And then there's something this evening where you're being recognized.
Yes. There is a roller derby out by Fair Park,
right?
And they've asked me if I would be what they're calling a celebrity whistleblower.
Listen, if the roller derby people think you're cool, you're cool. That's
well, thanks.
That's great.
By the way, I'd like to, before I forget this, you mentioned the fact that the city wants to make a big deal about the 50th anniversary. Well, where were they for the first 49? When we were out there keeping the issue alive for 49 years, and they didn't give a damn.
And one of the places you've been on these anniversaries, there have been respectful, thoughtful observations on previous 50ths. Is that correct? I mean, it hasn't been... Would you describe previous celebrations as circuses? Or?
Well, I wouldn't even describe them as celebrations. I'd say observations.
I keep hitting that bad word, sorry.
Well, the thing is that, we celebrate his life and his presidency. It's sad that he was killed, of course. Mm-hmm. It's just as sad that the city has gone out of their way, and the federal government too, to cover it up and pretend that it didn't happen. The work of the government, local and federal, would be to make us believe that President Kennedy died when the PT-109 was sunk. Mm-hmm. That's their point of view. They're embarrassed by it, and perhaps rightfully so. Mm-hmm. After the president was killed, the only person that we knew of at the time who was a central figure was Lee Harvey Oswald, and the Dallas police let him get killed. So there wouldn't be a trial. Mm-hmm. And that was the whole purpose of it. Jack Ruby's job was to silence Oswald. They never could have convicted him at trial. There were too many witnesses that he didn't do it, that he was elsewhere. But whether it was, there's two issues we're dealing with here. Is number one, was there a conspiracy? And number two, the civil rights issue, the First Amendment issue, which you have been a massive defender of. Thank you.
Yeah. That one's very, very troubling to me. And let me go back to this just for a moment, the matter of prior observations of this event in Dealey Plaza on prior anniversaries. Nothing disgraceful has ever happened during these observations in the past.
No.
Nothing that would be embarrassing.
No, certain individuals who are not even known have come up and made their own personal demonstration of what they felt needed to be said or done, which were a little less than.
Well, it's a public place.
Well, yeah,
it's a public place, and you're going to have people. If you were in Trafalgar Square, Times Square. If you were at Gettysburg, if you were in any place that's public, you're going to have a spectrum of people.
True. But I can only point out that some of these people who have done things that were perhaps a little less than conservative are their own point of view.
Yeah.
What we have done through the years has been a respectful moment of silence at the moment of the anniversary. We have given speeches honoring the president and requesting that there be another investigation into the case and go further than the House committee did, and that's pretty much it.
And I guess I haven't gotten to the lead here. You will not be allowed physically to enter Dealey Plaza on the 50th. Is that correct?
That's what the city is trying to do. What they're trying to do is not just for the moment of the assassination anniversary, not just for the day, but for the entire week surrounding it, to keep everybody out, except if they have a ticket. Who decides who gets the ticket? They do. It's insane. It's a national landmark. They have no right to do this.
I asked them how many tickets, who decides, and they said, well, that will be announced at a later date.
When? On the 23rd of November?
Yeah. It's being run by people, not terrible people, all of them. Ruth Altschiller, who's a nice lady. It's being run by sort of society types, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that...
And once again, I'll ask the same question. Where were all these people for the last 49 years?
Right. But anyone who diverges from this official view propagated by the Sixth Floor Museum will not be allowed there.
Or, like me, might end up behind bars again.
Because what are your plans?
I'm going to be there. Well, the federal judge in the case has ordered them not to interfere with my business. And my business is to be there and let people know that there's an alternative to the official fiction told by the Sixth Floor. And I'll be there.
You have it's basically a civil rights case in federal court, is that right?
That
First Amendment case.
That's right.
And when did the federal judge tell them not to interfere with your business?
right as soon as we filed the case. They threatened to throw me in jail again the very next day, and my lawyer was standing there, and they're trying to get him kicked off the case, one of my lawyers, because he was a witness, which is absurd, but that's their point of view. The police involved with doing this told me that they were just following orders from above. The first time I was thrown in jail, it was the city manager who ordered it himself. So this is something that has got them worried, has got them annoyed, and I'm considered their enemy.
And let me say something about the role of the Sixth Floor Museum, and I don't mean this as an excuse for them. I don't respect them for being such laydowns and patsies in this. They could do better, but it's clear to me from what people connected to the museum have told me, and from public statements they've made, that they've been a tool of the city manager's office in this. The city manager's office has absolutely run this whole campaign to shut down Dealey Plaza, and they used they had the museum go out and get a permit, supposedly. They got this permit for 2 weeks to control Dealey Plaza. It violated all the procedure for permits, and yet they gave them the permit. And then the city more recently said, and the backstory here is that the museum said, please let us out of this. And so then the city manager's offices said, okay, we're taking the permit back, and it's our permit. Well, how does the city give itself a permit? I mean, and how does the city take they're just flouting the law.
Well, they gave themselves a permit at the same time denying permits to the people that have gotten it for the last decades.
Yeah.
The first people to ask for a permit for the 50th anniversary was the Coalition on Political Assassinations.
COPA. Yeah.
COPA. They had asked 2 years ago for the permit, before anybody else, and they were denied it.
Their story, this is where you really get to the Kafkaesque absurdity of the whole thing. The COPA people told me that they went to the city and said, we want a permit. And the city said, well, there's a conflict. We're giving a permit to somebody else. And they said, well, we want to do a moment of silence. And so then the city came back to them and said, well, these other people have a moment of silence, and so we can't have two moments of silence. The moments of silence would conflict. Well, the one silence would get over and start affecting the other silence. So the COPA people said, well, we'll do our moment of silence after their moment of silence, or before. And that's when another long pause of weeks, and the city comes back and says, well, their moment of silence is going to be 2 weeks long. So, you could laugh, but it ain't funny.
True. True. One thing that I'd like to mention, as time goes by, I don't want to forget to say things that I think are kind of important. Number one, you and the Observer have been extremely supportive, and I thank you for that.
Sure.
And I think the city and all of the United States should be thankful to you for that. I say that in all honesty and all sincerity. One thing that does surprise me, considering the issues involved, is the lack of support from other media outlets. Channel 8 has been supportive upon occasion.
Yeah.
Upon occasion, so has the morning news, but not to the degree that you have. This is important to everybody who has a point of view on anything. It's a matter of freedom of speech. We all have a federal constitutional right to present our point of view. And this is something that is of major national concern. We're talking about the murder of the head of state of this country.
Let me pause one more time, because this is our pledge drive week, and ask for callers to give us a ring at 972-647-1893. You can call that number to talk to us, talk to Mr. Gorden, talk to me, or you can call to give us some money, which would be really nice, or you could do both. We talk for free. You don't have to pay us to talk to you, but we'd like your help very much. Here's a point I wanted to get to, and we'll get into it more in the final segment of the show. How smart is all this stuff? Dallas wants to shut down discussion of the assassination. They want to shut down any expression of skepticism because they think there's going to be international media here on the 50th. That remains to be seen. If I were a producer or a story editor at a network or a cable news show, I might be thinking, I don't know if I can afford to send a crew to this 50th thing. We got a lot of people who have been born who aren't sure which President Kennedy was. I don't know about that. But what would make it a good story to send a news crew to would be an effort to shut it down, would it not? I mean, is Dallas not just absolutely shooting itself in the foot with this stuff?
Well, somebody who I know and have a great deal of respect for has said many times, and you know it's you, has said the city, for some reason, insists on playing to its stereotype. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they're doing. The world considers them to be suppressive, and they're proving it.
Right. They're playing right into it. My wife and I were with a group of young people at an event at the Texas Theater. And these were all college graduates, smart kids, smart young people. And this was only about a year ago. And my wife said to them, "Do you know what happened here?" And there was a silence, and one of them said, "Is this where that president got shot?" That president. These are not... it's just that so much time has passed that you have to remind a lot of people who don't live in Dallas what the event is. So Dallas is going to do a great job of that, isn't it? It's going to reenact all of the things that made people suspicious of the city in the first place.
Well, you know, anybody who has any concern or any desire to learn about the assassination should certainly know what the grassy knoll is.
Yeah.
We have to tell them in the plaza what the grassy knoll is, where the depository was, who 40% of them refer to it as the Texas School Book Suppository.
The Texas what?
Texas School Book Suppository.
There could be something to that. Anyway, go ahead.
You have a point there.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, people say, I've had people come up and say, "Come on, tell me the truth. You know, tell me the truth. It was who was it shot here?" I have to, and I said, "Oh yeah. So it was John Wilkes Booth who fired the shot, right?" No, honestly, the people don't know.
Sure.
These are people that should know. And one person out of every 1,000 or so, usually drunk, trying to impress his other drunk friends, will just come and argue the point. They know nothing about the case. They've never read anything. They don't know any of the issues, and they insist that the Warren Commission was right. They haven't read it.
Right.
The only way to believe the Warren Commission is not to read it.
And this is an issue that is not without relevance. So we're talking about history, but it also has to do with how people understand government today, right?
Yes. And how kids are being taught in school, how various boards of education refuse to allow an alternative point of view in this particular issue. It's very sad.
The Republican Party last year, as part of its platform, came out against the teaching of critical thinking in Texas. Texas Republican Party.
Why does that not surprise me?
They're against the teaching of critical thinking because they said that it will cause children to have disrespect for their parents' beliefs. And I think they're right. I'm sure.
Like that's a bad thing?
Yeah, right. But, we are in an age where there's enormous pressure for people to conform in how they think. And this is a great example that's very relevant to things today. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with Robert Gorden for a final segment of Get Off My Lawn.
KNON would like to thank you for supporting community radio. Your donations continue to keep the voice of the people on the air. Did you know that many companies offer a matching donation when you make a pledge to KNON? Ask your company if they have a matching program. When your employer matches your pledge, KNON reaches its goal twice as fast, bringing you more of the music you love.
KNON talk shows. You can watch Get Off My Lawn by going to the KNON.org website. Click on schedules to the left side of your screen. Choose Get Off My Lawn's page. Scroll to the bottom of that page, then choose your favorite show to watch or download. This show will be ready for viewing by lunchtime Tuesday. Have a great day.
Jim Schutze, back with Get Off My Lawn, and distinguished guest Robert Gorden, authority on the Kennedy assassination. We've been talking about a number of issues, in particular the upcoming 50th anniversary and the efforts of the city to stifle dissent. Robert repeated a favorite line of mine before we went off the air, that Dallas has this tragic proclivity for playing to its own stereotype, that these efforts to shut down, let me recap for listeners. We're talking about this series of really draconian measures that the city has adopted to ban anybody from Dealey Plaza for 2 weeks in the upcoming 50th observation of the Kennedy assassination in November of this year, to ban anyone from Dealey Plaza who will express skepticism about the one gunman theory. That's a theory that's officially touted and promoted by the Sixth Floor Museum. I'm sure, Robert, you know all those folks, right? I mean, the ones who work there, Gary Mack. And
most of them, yeah.
Yeah,
you mentioned Gary Mack. Gary Mack used to be one of our strongest supporters, most eloquent supporters, until they bought him.
Gave him a job.
They gave him a job. They pay him a lot of money. And now you can't get him to publicly admit what he knows to be true, that there was a conspiracy.
Does he ever assert the contrary? Does he ever publicly say there was no conspiracy, or does he duck it?
He completely ducks it now, but if you watch there was a TV documentary produced in England, ironically, called The Men Who Killed Kennedy, and Gary appears in that and is extremely eloquent and raises very important points, all on our side. But that was before the Sixth Floor took him over.
It's a great example of what the Sixth Floor actually represents. That they hire this guy who was an eloquent spokesman for skepticism about the one gunman theory. He goes to work for them, and now he can't open his mouth.
Well, the sad thing is that, back in the day, if anybody within media here in Dallas needed a soundbite or needed an expert to talk to, they always went to him. And he always, again and again and again, was on our side and made very, very strong points. And that worried the other side. So essentially, it's like the Dallas Morning News buying the Times-Herald and shutting them down. It's essentially that. They offered me the job. They offered me the job as director. I turned it down because they made it very clear to me that I would have to sell out and stop talking about the conspiracy. I would have been Gary's boss.
And then we take it another whole level. Okay, they hire this guy who's a respected spokesman in the area of the assassination and theories that the official version is wrong, or, well, the official version could also be called the House. You could say the official version is that there's more than one gunman, depending on which official version you want to refer to. But anyway, they hire Mack. His mouth is shut. And then they look down from their window and they see you out in Dealey Plaza telling the story that they don't want to have heard, and they call the cops. Is that right?
That's exactly right. I'm a thorn in their side.
And, okay, you're a scholar, an author, an authority in this area. Tell me, what's it like to get thrown in a squad car and hauled off to Lou Sterrett?
It's not comfortable, that's for sure. It's frightening. The first time is bad enough. The second time is essentially worse. One of the things that they did is I have a heart condition, and I had medication, and I had it with me, and they refused to let me take it. They were playing Russian roulette with my life. They held me. I was bailed out in a half an hour, but they held me for 9 hours, playing their games. And the guards don't pay attention to you. You say, I need to take my medication. They just ignore it, and they tell you to sit down and shut up, or they don't even answer. It's
and
where
are you physically during that time? What kind of room are you in?
Well, it starts off in a massive holding room, and then it's in a smaller cell. It's just as
by yourself?
No, with obviously violent people. It's a frightening situation, and
so something could go a little wrong. Somebody could go off his nut and beat you up pretty bad.
Yeah, it could happen. I'm sure it did. The first time that they arrested me, there was a guy there who was so off of his nut that they had to put him in a straitjacket and hold him down on the floor.
Yeah, but he was in the cell with you.
Yeah. Beyond all of that, I now have a police record.
Right.
I'm now a criminal because of the city, and I've broken no laws.
So you fill out, I don't know, applications for stuff in life. A job, a position, a volunteer position. Let's say you want to volunteer for a charity that where you read for kids in the library, and they have a question: have you ever been arrested?
It's like Alice's Restaurant.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you have a sense of humor about it, but the point is, arresting somebody, putting them in a squad car, hauling them to jail, sticking them, leaving them in the cell with a bunch of tough guys, crazy people, that's violent, is it not? That's an act of violence.
As far as I'm concerned, it certainly was. The handcuffs behind the back, and then not even charging me with anything. They didn't read me my rights. They didn't tell me what I was being charged with. As a matter of fact, they changed the charge against me 3 times before it came to court. And then what they charged me for was a non-existent thing, which was not even a jailable offense.
And the judge said
that there's no case here, and she threw it out. Case dismissed.
Right.
Twice.
How far apart were those incidents in time?
Well, the first one was back around 1998 or 1999. And my attorneys spoke with the city because I was going to file a suit against the city then, and the agreement was made that they would drop the case against me, and they would not pursue legal action against me, and I would not pursue legal action against them. And for, I guess, nearly 12 years, they kept their word. They didn't. But then what happened is 6 months before the Super Bowl was going to be here in town, they didn't want people coming from all over the country and all around the world
I forgot the Super Bowl.
and having another point of view presented to them. That's why they threw me in jail. They figured if they could get me, they could get everybody else out of the plaza too, because there's other people selling in the plaza.
Right.
They don't have the credibility. Most of them are homeless people. Most of them are people that don't have none of them have any history in the case. If they could get rid of me, they could get rid of them. When they threw me in jail, all of a sudden nobody showed up in the plaza. They were all afraid.
I believe in karma. I think that you're to blame for that snowstorm that killed the Super Bowl. I think they earned that. I think you and I would agree that these people who are the agents of this, who show up in the incidents themselves, like Nicola Longford at the museum, Gary Mack, others, the cops who arrest you. There was the cop who was over them was Vince Goldbeck is a guy I have a lot of respect for. But these are errand boys. These are not people making, here we get into the question of what's a conspiracy and what's just real life. These aren't people who are making this decision, right? Somebody else is looking at Dealey Plaza and saying, get that guy. Get him, throw him in jail. Do what you have to do. Throw him in jail and give him a rough time. Don't let him have his heart meds. Put him in with some scary guys and we'll see what happens. Somebody over them is looking at you and saying, get him out of Dealey Plaza. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Without wishing to sound paranoid about it, that's probably absolutely true. Let's face it, I don't think that the average cop on the beat really wants to get involved in this. Most of them, and this is true, most of them will bring their families, friends from out of town to come and see what I have to say.
Right.
There have been judges who have brought people in to see what I have to say, and they're not afraid of what I have to say. Somebody up above actually is.
The minute the 50th, and we were instructed not to call it the 50th observation of the Kennedy assassination, the city's official directions are that we can only call it the 50th. The minute the 50th was announced, the Caruth Foundation, which is old Dallas money, kicked in $500,000 for security. $500,000 for security for Dealey Plaza. And security for what? Security to enforce what? Security to enforce the banning of people like you from Dealey Plaza during the 50th when they think there will be international media here. If they were willing to throw you in the slammer just for being out there some months ahead of the Super Bowl, and now they got $500,000 to play with, what's going to happen on the day of the 50th?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. They're saying that nobody will be able to get into the plaza without a ticket. Who provides the ticket and to whom? Mm-hmm. You know, that it's a very, very strange situation. And my attorney, who you've spoken to, Brad Kazaya, is ready to file another lawsuit against the city for suppression by trying to keep people out.
And Bradley Kazaya deserves a huge amount of credit, too, for his work on this issue.
Absolutely. He's been so supportive, and he really cares about the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. I have two attorneys involved in this. The other is Alex Tandy. The two of them have gone out of their way to try to keep this alive and try to prevent the city from getting away with what they're doing. By the way, you mentioned that the 50th. What's bizarre is there is a copyrighted name for JFK 50th.
Oh. Who owns the copyright?
Me. just to get at the city.
Oh.
You know, when they sort of started this crap about the 50th and refusing to even mention the assassination, well, it's an anniversary, but we're not going to tell you why.
Yeah.
You know, it's bizarre. If you've been to the plaza, I know you have, but for your audience, for anyone who has ever been to the plaza, you know there is a marker there at the foot of the grassy knoll, right by the sidewalk, that mentions that it's a national landmark, but it doesn't say why. President Kennedy's name is not listed. The reason for it being a national landmark is not listed. It's a very, very strange thing. It's like the memory hole in 1984.
Right. And then we have that ugly, stupid memorial, the Philip Johnson thing.
What a joke that is.
That you can't tell what it is. It looks like, I think the French word is pissoir. It looks like it's for the public urinals they have in Paris. It looks like it's made for giants. Yes. You can't tell what else it is. I should say, I don't know if I've ever said this to you before, Robert, I have no theory whatsoever and no dog in the hunt about the assassination. I am keenly aware of how little I know about it and how much reading and work somebody ought to do to have any opinion at all. So my mind is not made up, it's completely open. My issue here is First Amendment. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be, what we're going to have is a major police state mobilization to shut down the First Amendment at Dealey Plaza on the 50th. Can you think of a worse idea? It's
a parallel to Kent State, Chicago riots. It's in this day and age of enlightenment, in quotes, that something like this can even be considered is beyond reason.
John Judge of COPA and others are telling me, I mean, you've said you're going out there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Others are telling me they're going out there too. They're not going to be laydowns about this. They're not going to passively acquiesce in this. The city has said something about how they'll provide a venue somewhere for dissent, a dissent venue, like in Oak Cliff or something. There's even been some mention that it could be done with the Texas Theater, and then it would have a nice little historic twist to it, which is so Soviet, or 1984 or something. The dissent, by the time the dissenters agree to being trucked over to North Oak Cliff to the safe, secure, sanitized dissent area, that ain't dissent anymore, is it?
No, it's not. But I want, before our time is up, I want to be sure to mention the fact that just a few weeks ago, Robert Kennedy Jr. was here in the plaza.
Yes.
He was in Dallas, and he went public for the first time, admitting that both he and his father knew that there was, in fact, a conspiracy.
That was so ironic.
It really was. And the thing is that just like a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was released that Jackie Kennedy knew it too.
The story has always been that the Sixth Floor Museum couldn't get the Kennedy family to show up, even though they have books of cutout dolls of Jackie's clothes in their library. They couldn't get the Kennedy family to show up, and so this was such a coup. They got RFK Jr. To come, and what's the first thing he says when he gets on stage in Dallas?
That he and his father both were aware and believed that there was, in fact, a conspiracy. And what has not been said, and this is an exclusive for you, Bobby was in the plaza. Bobby Jr. was in the plaza with us just a few months ago, quietly, and we spent nearly an hour with him.
Really?
And we showed him what we had. He didn't comment, but he nodded his head.
He looked at the pictures.
Yeah.
And the pictures are tough.
Yeah, they are.
They're tough to look at, but you can't get your point across, can you, without the forensic photography?
That's correct. It's important.
Yeah.
And that's been my job in this, is bringing and preserving those pictures. Mm-hmm. That's something else, by the way. There was a break into my house several years ago, and my whole photo archive was stolen. Mm-hmm. And the Dallas police refused to prosecute the person who did it. They knew who did it.
You knew who did it.
Yeah, it was a woman who used to work for me.
Yeah.
She stole them all, and she actually had admitted it to federal marshals. But they refused to do it. The city wouldn't prosecute her. The district attorney's office wouldn't go after her. The Texas Rangers wouldn't. Nobody would touch it. She even stole mail from me, and the post office wouldn't go after her.
Have those pictures shown up anywhere?
No.
They're out of circulation.
They're out of circulation, yeah. And we're talking about thousands of visual images, original images, duplicates.
That could have been worth a pretty penny if she stole them to go out and peddle them, but she didn't.
They were worth millions. She wouldn't dare. She went to jail for 6 months for stealing them and ignoring the judge's order for to return them. She had them, but she wouldn't give them back. She knew what they were worth.
Mm. Well, we are about it here at the end of the show. Robert, I want to thank you so much. Before we get to the 50th, I hope that you'll come back, that we can discuss this again, and we can discuss what Dallas can do to show. Let's assume the press comes. What can we do to show that we're not the Soviet Union?
Get rid of the tickets, take down the police lines, and let everybody have access to a national landmark the way they're supposed to have.
One way or the other. The nice way or the tough way. We'll see. Get off my lawn. We'll see you here next week at 10 a.m. Jim Schutze. See you then.
Knon 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to knon.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.